FEV in California comes from a vault in the middle of Mariposa. Made some mutants a super strain. So if you're leaving California, it don't matter at all what you played before. Appalachia's a brand new game. Everything went to hell on the day the bombs fell. Scarred the land forever, right down to the soul. Playing through the wasteland is apt to kill you dead, man. 'Cause everything has changed, yeah, except for war. FEV in California came from a vault in the middle of Mariposa. Made those mutants a super strain. And now that you're leaving California, it don't matter at all what you played before. Appalachia's a brand new game.
Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we talk about the Fallout games and talk about them. I'm Cameron, and with me as always is Michael.
Talking about the Fallout games and talking about them.
That's right. Did I say that twice?
Yes, you did.
It's the game where we talk about the Fallout games and we talk about them again.
For the first time, for the last time.
First time, hey, Michael, this is the big dog. Wow, 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 wow. No, I'm the big dog, and I go wow, 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 wow.
Oh, okay.
You know, who was the guy who goes oh? The Night Wolf. Who was that guy's name?
Night Wolf? What?
Yeah, what was his name? In Fallout 3.
Three Dog.
Three Dog. Not the Night. The Night Wolf is it's a comedy Bang Bang character. You know, I like to make evergreen content that people can listen to forever that is indelibly linked to time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's fun.
Yeah,
Speaking of creating things indelibly linked to the time that they are released in, this is one episode about Fallout 76.
Mm-hmm.
And over the past, 2 years? How long have we been doing this show? Do you know off the dome?
5 years.
5 years?
Yep. I'm pretty sure we started in 2018 because that is when Fallout 76 first released, and it is because of Fallout 76 I'm pretty sure that we started doing this show.
It is because of that. Wow, 5 years. Well, it all comes to a close.
Mm-hmm.
Until Bethesda decide to make another one. And I just think the likelihood of that happening in like the next 7 years is low.
Mm-hmm.
Just based on, the fact that in 2018 they also announced Fallout, or they announced The Elder Scrolls 6, right?
Is that when it was announced? I'm not.
I think that's when it was announced. I
Okay.
think that's when that little teasy trailer thing came out.
I
think it was 2018, and it is. They have this week announced that it is finally in active development.
Hooray!
So we have not. No one has said Fallout 5 is coming out.
Yeah.
So we got a long time to wait.
Yeah. We are less than 24 hours out from Starfield releasing.
That's right.
That's where we're hitting the Bethesda machine.
Yep. They're in space.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they're in a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're in our world, but under the ground. And then other times they're not in our world. And they're above the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Too far. Well, this is the end because we're talking about Fallout 76.
Yep.
A game that many people have asked us about. Many people are asking, Are you going to cover Fallout 76? And the answer sometimes was yes. It actually began with yes.
Mm-hmm.
The show, as you said. And at some point we thought, no, I don't think so. And then there was a revolt. People dragged the guillotine out in the street saying, you better do it. You know what happened if you don't do it.
Yep.
So we're doing it. But I will broadly say, and because people are very excited for us to play it, they were like, oh, there's some cool quests in there, buried in this game. I have to take that on faith because broadly, our goal together, we decided we'll play 10 hours of this game. How many hours did you get through of actually playing Fallout 76?
8.5.
Let me tell you where I got. I got through fewer than that. I don't have it right in front of me. I got through fewer than that. And I've also played a big chunk of it. I played a big chunk of it on release. You know what I mean? So I've kind of had two swings at it. And I will broadly say that I find the game systems themselves to be so hostile to my enjoyment that it is hard to push through them to get to the next thing. How do you feel about that?
That is so very, very much the same experience that I have.
And so that's also, if you hear this and we're 5 minutes in, you go, they didn't give it a fair shake. I don't think we're going to have strong feedback one way or another about the Fallout versions of this. Actually, I have positive things to say about it. I don't think we're going to have very much feedback about the Fallout-y parts because bending Fallout broadly, the big system of Fallout, into the framework of the live service game, for me, just feels bad. It's like a real basic experience of it and everything that seemed cool about it and neat and something I might want to engage with long term. The game was like, hey, you need to put in about 40 more hours of this game before you can go engage with that. Hey, the Mothman's coming. Oh, we can't go see the Mothman. The Mothman's higher level than we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a
people
bummer.
over in that corner of the map, they can be hanging out with the Mothman. And in fact, they want other people to come join them to see the Mothman. But we're not high level enough to go see the Mothman.
Yeah. And I just think in a general sense, that's not what I want from Fallout. I don't want them not letting me see the Mothman.
Yeah.
Fallout to me is going one screen back from the opening village and finding a crashed alien spaceship with a bunch of red shirts inside. That's Fallout. At its best. It's not denying me the Mothman. That's our new shirt. Don't deny me the Mothman. With like a little cartoon Mothman. Now, if you want to draw the Mothman for that shirt, let us know. We'll pay you money to draw a Mothman, and we'll slap that text on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you want to start?
I mean, you gave a pretty good explanation for, I don't know, my overall feelings, which I also had some thoughts prepared on, which is mainly I do not typically enjoy MMOs to begin with. And I very much do not enjoy live service games. And so the way you described it as being there's all this stuff in here that I think is so interesting and that I would be happy to engage with. But there are these barriers or there's this very uncomfortable feeling I get when playing this game, right? There's something about seeing the the interfaces and the machinery of a live service game creep into something that in other respects feels very much like you're just playing, Fallout 4 expansion or something, right? There's something really uncanny and bad feeling to me about that of seeing how quickly this game was sort of repurposed and given this weird skeleton that just leads to interactions that I don't really that some of them I would want to have, but I would have to spend so much time and do so much stuff I didn't want to do in order to get to the cool things that it's hitting a brick wall, right? It's over before it started.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, unless you are willing to kind of give over your time, right? And that's the weird thing about it to me is that because I think we could do this episode. It's like, hey, it's got MMO stuff in it. It's got live service game stuff in it that robs it of any interest for both of us. Bing, bang, boom, we're done, right? We could spend like an hour picking that wound, but that's like insufficient probably to the problem. So, like we can go one level deeper because I have been thinking about this a bit. You and I played this, we played it independently, but we also spent like an hour or so playing together.
Mm-hmm. And it felt like we played for like 2.5 hours, but like we only played an hour.
Yes, and also we both were like at the end of that thing, we were like, I don't know if this is like enough. I think we both had this feeling of like, I wish there was more to do, like in terms of a diversity of activities or like, let me put it a different way. In every Fallout game we have played, all the way back to Fallout 1. One of the fun driving parts of Fallout as a fictional universe and as a game franchise, both, whatever, both the construct, right? The reason it's fun to think about Fallout, right? But also the reason it's fun to play Fallout, both of those things, is because you never quite know what you're going to find over the hill. Mm-hmm. You can just start walking. In both the original Fallout, Fallout 3, any of these, right? You start walking, you're going to find some weird shit. There's just stuff out in the world. You're going to find some guy, you're going to find a gizmo, and Killian Darkwater.
Yeah.
You're going to find these things, right? And we put, between the two of us, somewhere between 15 and 20 hours into it, and some of it together. And there was never a moment, because the whole game, at least for that first chunk, right? The first major set of experiences you can have, because everything has to be filtered into live service game onboarding, it actively robs the game of some of the thrill that is really unique to Fallout. There's not very many places you can go to find this. I know that No Man's Sky scratches that itch for some people, right? I get that. I've played a bit of No Man's Sky as well, right? The novelty is here, but the fun of Fallout is that it'll often be novelty, but within a familiar kind of aesthetic framework. Like, what is his? What's the cowboy robot's name?
Prim Slim.
Prim Slim. Prim Slim is fun.
Yeah. Because
we know what a robot is in Fallout, and we know what a cowboy is, or a sheriff robot. He's not a cowboy, right? He's a sheriff.
Oh yeah. If you were talking about, you said cowboy, so I was like, oh, actually, maybe you meant, oh God, what is his name? Is it Victor?
No. I meant the right guy, the guy at the casinos or whatever.
Yes.
But I think his like, anyway, that works, right? Because it is the familiarity of the Fallout design, the Fallout concepts, the Fallout kind of presentational mode of here's a robot who's kind of like a person but not, and then the like outsized part of it, which is like he thinks he's a little sheriff, and that's fun, right? And that's like totally unexpected. Never in a million years would I've been like, oh, I'm going to be playing the game. I'm going to find this really engaging, fun guy who's like going to, be a quest giver for me or whatever. And, I'm sure in the 70 hours we could put into this game that there are many experiences that are partially like that. But there is nothing at the opening of this game that does that. So for really and truly for me, it's not just like, oh, Fallout ain't what it used to be, but exactly what you said, the kind of creep of this entire universe of game design, when it pushes itself in, right? When it implants itself alien-like into the body of Fallout, it has to displace some things. And overwhelmingly across like what we've played and what we talked about, and some, I watched some YouTube videos and things like that, overwhelmingly, what's going on there is it's displacing, the things that are not guided, the things that are about self-direction, the things that are about finding some fun. We had many episodes across all of the Bethesda games where we were just like, Bethesda and Obsidian games, right? Where we were just like, all right, well, we'll do some side quests, random side quests you haven't done yet. And that just involved me walking across the landscape to find things. The live service game mode just doesn't encourage you to do that. You go from big node to big node. And so those things that you were talking about that are kind of moving into the space of Fallout, it comes at a cost, and it comes at the cost of the thing that I find interesting about Fallout.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, like just the act of leveling up ends up not being as much fun because we've moved away from kind of guided role playing. Now we've got this weird like card system that is explained to you when you start the game, but like doesn't immediately make sense. And by the time I figured it out, I was like, oh, so this just means that I am ripping open packs of cards in some weird like diegetic like overspace. Or rather non-diegetic, I should say. Right. And this means that, like, in typical Fallout, like, I am planning my character ahead of time, right? I know that there is an ability at level whatever that's going to let me do such and such a thing, reload my gun faster, get more criticals, whatever. And I can build my character toward that. And here, it's just, oh, like, you are at the mercy of like your current level and like various other things, but like basically whatever the RNG decides to spit out of your card packs. And that's just not fun. Like, I don't like that. That's not how I like to play these games. That's not how I like to build characters.
Right. Yeah, it seemed very hard to like make a Lucky Nell.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating thing to me, and you know, the people who have been really excited for us to play it, like, one, you should still be excited. I mean, not for us to play it, but like nothing that I'm saying here should displace your enjoyment of the game, right? Like, I don't think that Too Much Future as a show should be about like, here's us telling you how to enjoy the game or not. This is just us talking about the thing, and sometimes we like it, and sometimes we don't. But it is interesting to me that it seems like for people who really enjoy this game, and I've seen this game described this way in a bunch of places, as a quote-unquote podcast game, you know, a game that is about some repeatable activities to do while you're doing something else. But what seems to hook people is that there are like real cool narrative beats. And a lot of people, while we were playing Fallout 4, said, well, you know, Fallout 76 does this better, or, you know, approaches these ideas or thinks them better. That has to be buried so far in this game, though. You know, at least has to be above the 8-ish hours that you played and a little bit less that I played, right? Like, and it's fascinating to me that there's a almost like sunk cost fallacy to it. That like, I promise you, once you play enough of it, it's fun, it's good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it is, right? Like, I'm sure that there are parts of this game. It's unfair to the writers. It's unfair to the development team to be like, hey, the onboarding process for this and its movement away from the core of the franchise is so much that I like can't give it a fair shake. But it's also dishonest not to say that. Right? That like, I don't think I can give this game a fair shake because it is so far from the target for me. And it does feel so compromised by the fact that leveling up is kind of attached to a monetization system, right? Like the things you can buy for this game are like the game itself. You can focus in on some expansion packs and you can buy atoms for the in-game store, right? Like, it's a live service game. They want to sell you stuff. So it's like, I'm sure there's like super cool stories to be told at the shopping mall, right? But like, I don't think I'm in for it.
Yeah.
For those. But what happened in the gameplay sessions that you did, Michael, that stuck out to you, but stuck out to you as interesting or cool?
Interesting or cool things. So, I think the early part of the game, where actually, let's talk about like what is the setup in case somehow you're listening to this show and have never heard about Fallout 76. Basic idea is that it's like 25 years after the first bombs fell. Fallout 76 was a specifically designed like sort of repopulation resettlement vault with the idea that a whole bunch of people who were smart or competent or special in some way were loaded into the vault with their overseer. They had what seems like a really good time. Everyone became fast friends. And then after 25 years, the vault opens again and people go out and they're supposed to resettle the region surrounding the vault, which turns out to be Appalachia, right? Formerly West Virginia. And the way that this game works is that you are like the last person, when you make a new character, you are the last person in the vault to wake up on Reclamation Day, which is what they call it. And so you go through the vault and there's all this like stuff tutorializing things for you. Like there are a bunch of Mr. Handies that'll tell you things. And there's like, you have to eat food and drink water. You learn all this stuff, but you also pick up some information about the vault overseer, who is someone you are following for some of your early quests. One of the weirdnesses of this whole game is that obviously when it first launched, there were no human NPCs. Everything was like all robots and like audio logs. So that's still there, but now all of these other updates have added, like the in-game like clock has moved forward, and now people have come back and they've settled the wasteland. So you end up with like 3 kind of overlapping like tutorial quest chains that can be kind of weird. But one of them is about tracking your overseer as she like ventures through like basically the starting areas. Like that's my sense as I was playing this, is like, oh, basically you go to like the next like the closest town to the vault, find one of her tapes. At that point you're notified that there are other tapes in other places, and you can go to all the other little towns and find them. And this ends up being sort of interesting. Like I feel weird about the whole thing because of what it's doing to the vaults. Like, that's kind of like first level. Like, I think I would like this much better if it weren't in a Fallout game, because there's something here that feels really like meh to me about the way that it's perfectly in keeping with like vault tech as presented in previous Fallouts, to be like, there is one vault where everyone had a good time and everyone became friends and everyone like went out and they loved their overseer. Like, I can see some of the dark humor in that. Like, there could be dark places you could go with that, with sort of like the traditional Fallout satire. But there's something weird to me about the way that this like obviates the like inhumanity of the vault system that is otherwise like thrust into our faces again and again and again. And in fact, in this very game, I ended up going into another vault and like finding out about some stuff that happened there. So it's really weird. On the one hand, I sort of liked this, like sort of the hook, right? Like, and the overseer, her audio is her voice actress is Adrienne Barbeau. So that's pretty cool. I think she does a good job, and like her backstory is sort of interesting because you end up learning about her like getting married, or like her early childhood, who her parents were, how they lived in Appalachia, how she went to college at Vault-Tec University. Just it's sort of like just interesting, right? To hear the story, like the sustained story of this person, and kind of like, you know, the immediate prehistory of the bombs falling. And then eventually you do meet her. At one point, I think when we were playing together, you told me that she's dead, and that turned out to be a lie.
Ooh.
Yeah. You lied to me, because I found her. Like, she has a little house in one of the towns where, actually the town where she grew up. You like go to her childhood home and like look through her bedroom and stuff, because she like went back to her childhood home, right? That was a thing that I found very striking, is this idea of like, she gets out of the vault and she goes to all these places, but one of the places she ends up going is like her childhood home, which is like in ruins, right? And her parents are dead and all that stuff. And so
she's a robot. Previous game taught me that everyone's a robot.
Well, okay, so I find her in her new house. Finally, she's like hanging out wearing a leather jacket. And I'm like, oh, it's Adrienne Barbeau. And she's like, I've been waiting for you. Like, come down to the basement. We have so much to talk about. And we go down there, and she has a robot. And she's like, the robot has a name. And she's like, he's been responsible for a lot of the point work on. And then the robot starts talking. And I think like its line got triggered or something. So then she stops talking, and then they both just stop talking, and they stand there and they stare at me, because like the order of operations for the little scripted scene was broken. So then I talk to her, and I'm like, hey, we're together now. Like, what are we going to do? And she's like, I have some important work for you to do. And then the game sort of visibly takes a moment as a check is happening. And then she's like, but you need to be stronger first. And then it pops up, return to the overseer when you're level 20.
Oh my God.
Yep.
This is why Baldur's Gate 2 figured this out. Baldur's Gate 2, Act 2 progress is gated based on how much gold you can accrue. You don't have to be high level. You just got to go find a bunch of money. Good luck. It's good. That's rough stuff. Well, did you get level 20?
No.
Why not?
Well,
didn't care?
I had pursued a whole bunch of quests. I'd done so many quests. All these like little tutorial quests where, you know, you have to learn how to cook food and make your little camp. All that stuff. And then I was getting into kind of the meat of the game, right? The first quest, so, like how I got to the Overseer, right, is I had to do this quest where there's this whole like thing called a Scorch Plague that's going around. It turns people into a new type of zombie, but also all the traditional monsters that you know and love from the Fallout games, as well as a few surprises are here, and they can be infected with the Scorch Plague too. So
yeah, the Scorch Plague turns you into a feral ghoul who can use a gun.
Yep.
So you don't have to feel bad about shooting people with a gun.
Yeah.
A mindless monster can also have a gun. The ultimate loophole.
They're not mindless. They have a hive mind. That's important because there are giant mutated bats flying around that are they're like weird colony minds.
Okay.
This whole thing also, like, just bracket, like, this is all so bizarre. It feels on the one hand like it's so tired, so stale. Something about it feels so familiar, and at the same time, it feels so weird and out of place. Anyway,
because it's a magical plague in Fallout.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Like it just, and it also like we have in the Fallout-averse, roughly a couple hundred years of like fictional history. Mm-hmm. No one ever mentioned the Scorch Plague of Appalachia to me before.
But so, I mean, that's another observation to make, is that there's something interesting going on here at like a corporate or IP level where Bethesda has kind of written themselves a magic portal where they can do so much stuff to Fallout continuity, like have the Brotherhood of Steel show up here on the other coast, like, less than 30 years after they form. So, like, they can do all this stuff that, like, basically lets them retcon all of the elements that they don't like or, like, don't care about out of the older continuity. And at the same time, the portal is magic and also doomed because there have been games after this one that do not mention Appalachia in the slightest. So they're going to have to come up with some sort of workaround, or everything here is, like, ultimately consigned to dust, right?
Yeah, because people are making, like, Civilization here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're getting up to Fallout 3 levels of people concentrating with one another. Now, I do think there's like what the hell happened then? Maybe it's the fact that you can, release nuclear weapons on one another over and over again. Mm-hmm. The first thing, I told you about this before, but the first thing that happened when I left the vault, you do your character creation stuff, you leave the vault, you walk out and you can see a beautiful, like, landscape in front of you. That's the opening of the game. And hold on, I want to see if I can actually pull it up here. Yes, I can. Hold on. So the first thing that happens is I get this thing. It's like, it's called Death from Above. It's just this like big, quest thing at the top right of my screen, and it just says Death from Above. Time to nuke touchdown. In the first 1.5 minutes of me playing this game, I watch a nuclear weapon detonate in the distance. I have a screen cap of it like exploding. And I was just like, what are we doing? What's happening here?
Yeah.
But that kind of set the stage for the rest of the thing, which is just like, this is a world where everyone is already playing and doing all kinds of stuff in front of me. And I am in no way a unique human being in this thing. And people are obliterating people somewhere over there, and having their own games. And I'm skeptical of the like player fantasy, player empowerment stuff. Like, I think that's neat in some ways that you're just some person doing a thing. But also that meant that there's no pacing for like escalations of human life. You know what I mean? It's not because you don't go from a dirt farmer to a superhero, right? Which is like the normal player fantasy thing. It's just like there's a superhero over there and they're detonating nuclear weapons, and you better not be near them. Good luck. Have a good time finding your own, overseer that they did beforehand. It just kind of obliterates any kind of sense of this being a coherent world. Like we're in like a little theme park. And that's totally fun, and also that's like an MMO problem, right? Guild Wars, the original Guild Wars solved this, and eventually World of Warcraft also brought this in of like kind of instancing world states. Before and after certain world states, you're engaging with a different part of the world or way of seeing the world or architecture, and that's always really fun to me. That's not happening here. I mean? You don't have to get to a point before you get to see other people using nuclear weapons or whatever on each other.
Yeah.
which is a design decision, right? Like they could have done that, and they chose not to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I eventually like sputtered out on reaching level 20 because after I had done all this stuff, the reason I brought up the Scorch Plague and all that is that you have to complete that quest before you get to meet her, right? You devise a inoculation for the Scorch Plague and then inoculate yourself. And that way you don't turn into Scorched, I guess, right? Otherwise, like, it doesn't have any effect on you mechanically, as far as I can tell. Like, you can never catch it. You just have to do this in order to progress in this quest line. So I'd already done, like, a whole bunch of this stuff. And sidebar, another sidebar, right? The Scorched have already come through and, like, killed everyone. Like, that's part of, I think, why there were only robots before, is that there was, like, an attempt at rebuilding civilization, and then the Scorch Plague started and, like, killed off all of these kind of, like, early factions that arose.
We got to take one step back.
Yeah.
The game launched without any human NPCs.
Yeah.
And then they added them later. And
Yeah.
so there are these, like, weird double things of sometimes there's that, and sometimes there's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, so I was just going to say, like, there are multiple points where, like, you go to, like, an old faction's headquarters and, like, it's in ruins. Everyone's dead. Except now there's, like, one NPC there who's like, hey there, are you going to join the first responders? I am too. Good thing they left their tutorials on all these computers. And it's just the weirdest thing in the world to be like, to, like, show up to a charnel house and be like... I'm bringing this back. So anyhow,
Let's do that. Let's build civilization again. It's like you're going places and like everyone is what was the guy's name? Like Vulpes, whatever. Like the Caesar's Legion guy you meet for the first time. Like just everyone's that guy. Like I can't believe they built something so good. Let's build this again.
it's just. Oh, so by the point that I got to the Overseer then, I was pushed into other quests that I could have done, but each one I tried to follow up ended up making me do something that seemed so unpleasant that I went to, like, the next one in my list. And then there was some arbitrary gate that kept me from that one, right? Yeah. One of them was like, go to this area. And I was like, okay, I'll go to that area. And then it was like, you need a gas mask. So I have to go get some sort of gas mask, right? So no, I don't want to do that. I go to this other area. That other area spins me off into like 3 more quests. Those 3 more quests are like, go to these 3 areas and do like, fix a thing that's broken. Here's how you fix it. You're going to farm materials, crafting materials until you get like 3 screws and a battery and this, that, and the other. And then you can fix the things that you need to fix. And then you'll complete these quests. And each time I just bounced back. And then eventually I quit playing finally because I was walking somewhere and a super mutant shot me in the head and killed me. And I was just done.
So this is like what I ran into at every instance, even kind of wandering around and trying to not quite sequence break, but the game, like every other live service game or MMO, it takes you from spot to spot. In Destiny, that happens in the big kind of planet maps, and it takes you from like big hub to big hub. Mm-hmm. There tends to be like a quest giver in one part, but then there's like places where quests regularly happen or whatever, these big arenas. And, so I was doing that. I was like, all right, what are the kind of hubby looking spots? Can I go and get those? And I would say every quest that I got was like, go find 7 dog livers. Not all of them. And I think some of them that were pretty neat. Like I like the quests that we did both of these together, but, I like the quests that are like go because you can get these kind of like building spaces essentially. What are they called?
Camps.
Like camps. Okay, like you can go get those, and you go like take them from whoever's there, and then you defend them. It tells you, hey, it's being attacked. You gotta go get it. And this is the same way that the stuff in Fallout 4 works as well, right? Which is like, go to the Starlight Drive-In, build there, blah blah blah.
Or I guess they're like camping spaces. The camp is like the little like doodad that you have to place to build in a thing. But yeah, like what you're saying is that there are like locations that you can clear out and claim them as like crafting areas.
Yeah, they're like just little builder zones. And so I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool to like go get them and then defend them. I think we had a pretty good time doing that a couple times. And I think that's fun. That's like good game loop to me, which is like get items, get weapons that are fun to use, stuff like that, and then do some building, and then people will attack you, and you got to defend your little building that you made. And that's like, not complicated, but interesting to me. So I thought that was pretty fun. And then we had to do a quest where we had to find like the little monkey doll.
Yeah.
And we could not find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we had to find like 3 of them or 1 of them. I can't remember how many we had to do.
I think it was just 1, but there were like a whole bunch scattered around.
Right. That were like fake ones.
Yeah, decoys.
And it took forever. But I think that was fun. I hated it at the time. But on retrospect, it's like, that's better than collecting 7 dog livers every day.
Yeah.
We had to communicate with one another. We had to like fight some enemies along the way. We had to like clear out the whole area. And then we had to like check around, and I think I missed it and you ended up finding it or whatever, right? And it was like, or whatever. It was like a good little pro-social, nice thing to do, that wasn't just shoot stuff. It required a little bit more thought to it. And there was not just a little map marker to go to pick it up. It actually required looking at this pseudo photorealistic thing. Now, would I want to do more than one quest like that? No, never in a million years. At the time, did I hate the actual quest itself? Yes, I did. But on retrospect, I think that's pretty fun. It at least kind of trusted us as a player to like go and play Where's Waldo in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So some fun stuff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we did not go see the Mothman.
Yep, that happened. Someone was putting up like the Mothman event while we were there, and
we got hype on it. We were like, let's go see the Mothman. Let's do it. And I was like, how do we do it? Like, how do we find it on the map, And I got digging around. I was like, you need to be level 2 billion to fight the Mothman. I was like, shit. I'll never be level 2 billion.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. So, yeah, unfortunately, we ran directly into that experience, which is like, this game is actively telling us that there are cool things to do and you can't do them yet. And that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a carrot on a stick to me. That's just the stick.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you didn't already, like, grind your gears to dust playing this game. So you don't get to access the cool thing that's, like, on the banner. Like the game banner on Steam. You don't get to do that yet. Which is why, actually, I really enjoyed the Elder Scrolls MMO. We've had people on the Discord playing that off and on throughout the years, and I put, a fair number of hours into it, not a huge number. But what's pretty cool about that game is you can do anything at any time. Like, they got rid of level restrictions for stuff. So you just go do stuff. I went and played a big chunk of the, Morrowind.
Yeah.
Vardenfell campaign.
I've been curious about that.
It's fun. It was cool. I mean, it's the same game design-y kind of stuff. It's not any better or worse than the actual experience, but that is a place. It's really interesting to me that in Fallout 76, I really kind of bounced off of that game design, right? And in The Elder Scrolls, I was a little bit more friendly to it. Maybe part of that has to do with the fact that I didn't feel like I could really play authentically, or the way maybe not authentically, but the way I wanted to, a melee character. That was actually pretty hard to do in Fallout 76, at least in the opening. It seemed like melee weapons should be secondary until you can start getting some cards to start putting in your level up system.
Yeah.
I had to end up defaulting to a gun a lot, actually, which was not really what I was after.
Yeah. At one point, I found another vault. It was
what happened?
It was Vault 51. It had a really cool start where you come up on it and you can go into like a little room that's sitting, like a little building or shed or something that's sitting nearby. And you go in there and there's a robot, a Mr. Handy in there, and he gives you some stuff for like your camps, like for building things. But the other thing that he tells you about is that there was a guy who was living in that room with him, a guy who came out of the vault, and you can like look at that guy's terminal entries that he left, and he talks about how there's like something in the vaults, and he basically he escaped from the vault, you figure out, and then he like instead of running away, stayed outside of it because he's like monitoring something that's inside, and it's something that is like talking back to him, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is really interesting, what's going on here? And I end up finding out that you can get into this vault. It turns out it was like an event that used to happen in-game. It was like a battle royale mode where a bunch of people went into the vault and killed each other and whatever. And now it's just like an area on the map that you can explore. So you go in, and it turns out that this vault was filled with a whole bunch of people, like sort of randomly, and then they were given a Zax computer from all the way back in Fallout 1, like the supercomputer. And it was programmed to like help them elect an overseer. So everyone had to like come up with a plan for like, how do we elect? Like they started out just like straight up like voting, right? Like they like voted for the overseer, but everyone voted for themselves, it seemed like. And then they tried another thing, like, oh, let's see who can, like, win the music contest or the talent show. Like, each person got their turn, like, coming up with a way for trying to choose the overseer, and it kept failing. And then eventually people start losing their shit and murdering each other. And you get all this through terminal entries, and there's some, like, Scorched running around in there. And the entire time, Zax is sort of, like, talking to you, just sort of making, like, random observations to itself. Like, it never really engages with you as an NPC, but it's just kind of, like, talking over the intercom. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this was pretty cool, except I didn't get to finish it, because there are doors that are, well, actually, one fun thing that happened is that while I was doing this, someone launched a nuclear bomb. And I was like, well, that's very convenient for me because I'm in a vault, so I didn't have to worry. So the counterexample to your opening scene, Cameron.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, the opening scene, it didn't kill me.
Yeah.
It was just over there.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you were saved. Thankfully, it worked the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, it was also over there for me, but I was just like, well, this is about the best place I could be if that was happening.
But I bet it killed your belief in the capabilities of democracy.
Well, Zax was like, they still use nuclear weapons. They're so eager to use nuclear weapons even after what happened. Really makes you think about humans. And it's implied that like Zax is fucking, or oh, I'm sorry, we might get demonetized.
No, we're 40 minutes in. You can say the F-bomb.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Zax is messing up all of their elections or whatever. I didn't find out for sure because there are locked doors in this. And the key cards, some of them show up in precise spots and some of them show up in like one of two spots. And so it is therefore possible for all of the key cards to spawn in such a way that you can enter the vault, like kill all the Scorch that you can reach, but then can't venture further in because the one key card you need to kind of like set the domino chain falling has spawned behind a door locked by another key card. So I had to leave and then go back in, and all the monsters had respawned and someone else was there killing them.
That's the MMO experience.
Yep.
That's EverQuest. Where's Danny? That's fun. So you never completed it.
Nope. I was like, oh, okay, screw this.
Right. Like, does that doesn't just, yeah, I mean, it just obliterates, like, for me, what is the interesting part of the game? And maybe that's it, right? Like, maybe that really and truly is a major divide between maybe the way that we play these games and the way that many other people do, which is like, I derive nearly zero pleasure from the act of attacking and planning, attacking enemies and planning the ways I will do that. Mm-hmm. I just that's like a perfunctory thing that I get through in order to do the thing I really care about, which is like explore the world of Fallout. I'm certainly like a player's narrative experienced first kind of player, not a player's like guns and ammo experience. But I think that maybe if you're like a number go up person, right? Like, and if that's the thrill for you and you care a little bit about the Fallout stuff, or maybe you care about both of those things equally, I'm sure that's like fun. Oh, you get to go fight more enemies. That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
You're here to make number go up.
No, I wanted to read the terminal entries and find out how everyone murdered each other.
Yeah. Same.
Right.
Well, that's fascinating. And sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder how it ends. You want me to Google it? Oh, wait. You know what? I'm going to... We pulled up, both of us. We pulled up that devil, ChatGPT, to ask it some questions about Fallout earlier.
Uh-huh.
And we did that. I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to do my part to pay no money for this and make them go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Talk about a marker of the age. But I'm going to throw this in here. I'm going to ask this machine, tell me in one sentence how Fallout 76 ends. Do you want to know what ChatGPT told me?
Sure.
In Fallout 76, the main quest line culminates with players launching a nuclear missile to defeat the Scorch Beast Queen and stabilize the region of Appalachia. I'm going to say make it more detailed. That in the conclusion of Fallout 76's main questline, players work together to successfully launch a nuclear missile against the Scorched Beast Queen, a colossal and menacing creature plaguing the region of Appalachia, ultimately bringing about a temporary respite from the ongoing environmental and mutant threats in the wasteland. This is garbage. If you believe that ChatGPT is going to change the world, this is garbage. It's bad. Make it more detailed. Add more adjectives.
Uh-huh.
With the word "and" between them. It's good. All right. Well, what have we learned about Fallout, Michael?
Well, Fallout is a really interesting case study of the contemporary franchise situation, right? Is there anything else? Let's put it this way. Is there anything else that has been, like, resuscitated in this way, and it resuscitated successfully, right? Kind of pushed into the center of the gaming ecosystem, I feel like Fallout has been.
Oh, yeah.
So all that happened, and now we're kind of in this situation. Is there anything else that kind of works like this? Because there's, all these sort of debates about, like, the legacy and trajectory of Fallout now, and who knows what that's going to be, like, what's going to grow out of 76, or what Fallout 5 hypothetically may look like. Right. But I think because of that history, like, Fallout is dogged by some of these questions, and one of the things that we've seen up until this point is that Fallout is at... The one thing you can say about Fallout right now, it is a franchise.
Yeah. It's flexible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other game that I think about in relationship to this, even though it's quite a bit different, is the Diablo games. So, Diablo 1 and 2, major games in their moment of release. The first game, just a hugely important single-player game, maybe important multiplayer game, but really important single-player. Then Diablo 2 comes out, and it, like, revolutionizes the way that we're thinking about multiplayer games, like these worlds with multiple players, and also like the system under which that happens with the resets and all those things like that, right? This kind of treadmill design. And again, as far as I know, not really monetized in that, right? It was a way of keeping people engaged, but it was not a, they weren't selling you atoms for customization, at least as far as I'm aware, right? And then there's a big gap. There's like a 10-year gap, right? And then Diablo 3, which is that, it is kind of a microtransact-y game. It is not as much as Fallout is. It doesn't feel like a live service game in the same way, but it has the same idea to it, it feels like. Which is like, it's responding to the post-World of Warcraft world. What are the things we could do to put Diablo 3 into conversation there? And so I've played a bit of that, but not a huge amount. I'm actually looking here to see, like, what microtransactions they put in here.
In Diablo 3?
In Diablo 3, yeah.
I did play Diablo 3.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you do timed experience boost, cosmetic items, and in-game currency that can be purchased with real money? Did you do any of that?
Apart from buying the game and playing it, I spent no money on it.
Yeah, same. But it was like kind of in there, and I think you could do that with Fallout 76 easy. There was never a moment where I was like, I need to actually like spend money on booster packs, and maybe you get to a point where that's at. But it didn't feel like that was being front and centered loaded on me, right? In the same way that Diablo did. And then Diablo is like now kind of split into two threads, right? There's the Diablo Immortal continuing the microtransact universe. And then Diablo 4 seems to have been released kind of almost entirely around the promise of classic Diablo. We're going back to Diablo 2. And I'm sure because it's a game released recently, it must have some kind of ability to monetize after launch, but that didn't seem to be front facing in the way that Diablo Immortal really was kind of doing that, especially because it's available on mobile platforms.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder if that's it. Is that the future of Fallout? Is it big single player experiences that maybe have multiplayer capability or something like that? I kind of can't imagine them doing Fallout 5 that doesn't have the ability to jump into other people's worlds. That seems necessary. And then Fallout 76, which Fallout 76 2, Fallout 77. That is live service as its whole entire model. I can see a world, but I think you're right when you say Fallout is a franchise. I think part of what franchise means is that it can support and provide the skeletal structure upon which, the IP structure, upon which you can cyborg-like build out different game genres on top of it.
Yeah.
And we have at least 3. We've got the kind of first single player thing that's still going. Fallout 4 is still a popular game, and that's its own thing. And then Fallout 76 is its own thing, and then things like Fallout Shelter, right, were their own thing as well. And that 4, 76, and Shelter all seem to kind of burst out around the same times. And then now, where do we go from here, right? Is a big question. But it feels Fallout's capacious enough and big enough that you could staple it onto anything you want to. The card game.
Yeah.
Fallout Arena.
They brought Ron Perlman back.
Yep. How do you feel about that? He's in the game. He goes around and he kills all the newbie players.
That would be actually really good.
It would be if he went around in power armor and in PvP mode and 1v1 level 1 players. That would be very funny.
And anytime you are on the cusp of launching a nuke, the game takes control from you, and you hear Ron Perlman's voice be like, "Now hold up there," and then he walks up and he's the one who launches the nuke.
No human can do this except for me. That would be a good listen. If you're in games PR, think about this. It would be fun PR to in a game that has open comms to have celebrities come and be super powered in the game, right? Just not take damage and have infinite ammo or whatever, right? In Call of Duty, and then they just kill people and then taunt them. If Vin Diesel killed me in a video game, it would be very fun. It's good. So think about it. But yeah, I don't. It's kind of Fallout 76 being the ending of Too Much Future is kind of it's not melancholy because I'm ready to be done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started here, right? This game came out and everyone was like, "Oh, this is missing the point of Fallout." That was kind of one of our trajectories, is people were saying, because this game mechanizes the nukes in this way, it is missing the point of Fallout, which is always that it's always been this anti-nuclear satire, has been the argument.
Right. That's what we began with way back 5 years ago.
Right. And one of the things that we came up with in playing through all of these games was, at the beginning, that wasn't quite as clear, mainly because the games themselves don't end up saying much early on about nukes specifically. It seems like there was more going on in kind of the game manuals, right? That lent a lot of feeling of satire to it. But then sort of the lag between Fallout 2 and Fallout 3, that's where a kind of hagiography of the franchise starts, and it reaches kind of this pitch point with Fallout 76 in 2018, and what is the soul of Fallout? I guess the question, or not the answer that we arrive at, is well, actually, Fallout contains the ability to do this. You launched nukes in New Vegas as well, right? It happened in a very different context. It wasn't as trivialized. And there is something about the same mechanic repeating, right? That it was in New Vegas, you launch those nukes, and then you get access to a special area with a bunch of really hard enemies that have a lot of really cool loot. And that's exactly what happens here in Fallout 76, right? It's the same thing sort of repeated, and now it's being repeated in kind of the different genre context of the MMO as kind of a high-level raid. And there you have it, video games.
Yeah. There you have it, video games. I don't know, it's interesting to think about Fallout kind of going through these waves. And for many people, it seems like Fallout 76 is not a trough. For me, it is. For me, it's disappointing to see what I consider primarily to be a monetization strategy for players being taken as like the only experience of Fallout that we really get right now. But I don't think I'm in the majority. I don't feel like I'm in the majority. I feel like lots of people have a very positive impression of the Fallout 76 experience. And maybe I just didn't get far enough into it, right? Like I'm open to the fact that I didn't get there. But I fundamentally recoil at a lot of the ways that they are, presenting the world to me. And I do kind of wonder, does it ever go back? You know what I mean? Like I just don't see a world in which the pendulum would swing back the other way. I mean, like there's no incentive for it to.
That's sort of what I was thinking of with the nuke example, right? The mechanics are there. The mechanics don't go away even then in the next game.
Right. Yeah. I just don't, this has been such a great series. It's been fun to play all these games and talk about them and think about them and engage with them. Like, that's been great. And there is a little bit of melancholy of looking at it and being like, I'm just not sure it's ever going to go back. And I don't need it to go back to like Fallout 1, right? That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not even talking about in terms of like content, right? Like I don't need it to be like the sense of humor it needed to be it used to be, or like the way it used to think of the particular world. For all the criticisms we have of Fallout 4, it's a big game, right? And it's capacious. Does it have a kind of core thesis about it that I don't think sat right with either of us? Sure. Right. But it at least gives us like a bunch of models of the world and like gives us a bunch of factions and some complexity to ping off of one another. And I think Bethesda would keep doing that. It seems like from Starfield coming out, they're still interested in doing that, pinging a bunch of ideas off of each other. Cool. Great. It's just a little bit of a bummer to think that like the kind of gameplay experience of Fallout 3 of like what's over there and how's it going to be and what kind of weird thing are we going to run into without any kind of breadcrumbing or without knowing that I need to go, pick up 9 hog feet over there or whatever, that might not ever happen again. Even in a single player game, that might not ever happen again.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, once we get Fallout Infinite, so we can, like you said, travel between people's worlds, because the problem that this does really solve is you can build stuff and other people can see it now rather than just the screenshots that you take or whatever. So they're going to have to bring that in. You're going to have to be able to jump into other people's worlds and see the things that they're building with the settlement mechanics that we are absolutely not getting rid of.
Right. Well, I'm glad that we played all these games.
Yeah. Interesting project.
We're done.
Yeah, unless we come back for the TV show.
We'll probably come back for the TV show, I bet. There's have you seen the secret images of Walton Goggins?
I have. Boy, is that making me not exactly happy, but
I don't know. I'm curious about it.
Yeah.
I'm not angry or happy about it. I got no feelings. I'm just it has piqued my curiosity. And I think that's fun. Yeah. It's fun to have my curiosity piqued. But yeah, so yeah, we'll probably come back. We'll probably do like a big, at the end of the season, an episode 70 of the Fallout television program. Maybe we'll become like a watch podcast.
Yeah. Once the
but only
the
after the strike is done.
Yep.
Got him. All right. So we'll be back.
Yeah.
Probably. We'll be back in like several months.
Yeah, we're closing, the big gear is like sliding into place right now. Beep, beep, beep.
That's right. And when there's a new Fallout game, we'll come back for that too. But if people, oftentimes Too Much Future bounces back and forth. Not oftentimes. That's why it took 5 years. That bounces back and forth between Danny and my show about the Baldur's Gate games. Baldur's Gate 3's out. So Mages and Murder Dads is coming back in January of 2024. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Until we meet again, then. War never changes, but Fallout did.